When you begin to master emotional detachment, you realize that peace is no longer something someone can take away from you. It becomes your possession, something you choose to protect no matter who enters or leaves your life. Many people spend years feeling drained because they tie their emotions to every opinion, every mood swing, every sharp comment from others, and in doing so, they hand over their control. Emotional detachment isn't about being cold or uncaring. It's about recognizing the line between what belongs to you and what belongs to them. Their words, their emotions, their reactions are theirs, and your sense of balance is yours, untouchable unless you willingly hand it over. Think about how often we let a single sentence ruin an entire day. One impatient remark from a coworker, one dismissive tone from a friend, one judgmental glance from a stranger, and suddenly our mood spirals. But when you detach, you see those things for what they are, reflections of the other person's world, not yours. Their frustration is not your frustration, their stress is not your stress, and their judgment doesn't define your worth. You gain the ability to pause and say to yourself, that belongs to them, not to me. And in that space, peace quietly takes over. It's important to understand that detachment doesn't mean ignoring or disconnecting from reality. It means not letting your emotions get entangled with things you cannot control. If someone chooses negativity, you allow them to carry that burden while you walk lighter. This shift makes you harder to shake because you've built a wall of perspective around yourself. That wall isn't to shut people out, but to protect what matters inside. You don't waste energy fighting with what's beyond your control, and you don't allow outside storms to dictate your inner weather. That's why emotionally detached people appear calm even when surrounded by chaos. You can practice emotional detachment in small ways every day. Start by noticing your triggers, the little things that usually pull you into unnecessary battles. Maybe it's when someone interrupts you, maybe it's when someone ignores your effort, or maybe it's when someone tries to provoke you. Instead of immediately reacting, detach by creating a moment of separation between their behavior and your response. You silently remind yourself, this is theirs, not mine. That reminder is powerful because it frees you from the automatic cycle of irritation or defensiveness. You stay grounded while they spin in their own storm. Over time, this practice builds resilience. You stop seeking validation from others because you realize your stability doesn't come from them. It comes from within. That inner strength grows each time you choose not to let someone's mood decide yours. It grows each time you decide not to explain yourself when no explanation is needed. It grows each time you let someone be upset without feeling the need to fix it. Detachment transforms you into someone who doesn't get pulled into unnecessary drama, someone who doesn't need to prove anything, someone who remains anchored no matter how hard the waves hit. The greatest gift of emotional detachment is freedom. You move through life lighter, unbothered, and unaffected because you no longer absorb energy that doesn't belong to you. People may try to push, provoke, or test you, but instead of reacting, you observe. Instead of defending, you protect your calm. Instead of matching their chaos, you maintain your clarity. This doesn't just change how you deal with others, it changes how you carry yourself, how you see the world, and how much energy you save for what truly matters. Responding instead of reacting is one of the most powerful shifts you can make if you want to become truly unbothered. Reactions are automatic, quick, and often fueled by emotion, while responses are intentional, calm, and controlled. Most people live on autopilot, letting their emotions lead the way without any filter, which is why small situations can turn into big conflicts. When you train yourself to respond rather than react, you're showing mastery over your emotions rather than being ruled by them. That control doesn't just protect your peace, it also changes the way others see and treat you. Think about the difference between snapping back and pausing before you speak. A reaction is someone cutting you off in traffic and you immediately yelling, honking, or letting anger take over. A response is noticing what happened, taking a breath, and deciding not to hand your energy to a stranger you'll never see again. A reaction is someone raising their voice and you instantly matching their tone. A response is lowering yours and holding your ground with calmness that cannot be shaken. One escalates, the other disarms. One drains you, the other strengthens you. When you practice responding, you gain time. Even just a few seconds of pause can change everything. In that pause, you step back from the fire and decide whether you even want to touch it. Often you'll realize the best response is no response at all. And when you do speak, your words carry more weight because they're not drowned in emotion. People respect a person who can keep composure under pressure, who doesn't lose themselves in the heat of the moment, and who doesn't let others dictate their mood. That kind of presence is rare, and it makes you unshakable. Responding also protects relationships. In heated moments, reactions usually add fuel, creating damage that takes time to undo. But when you respond, you create clarity instead of conflict. You may still address the issue, but you do it in a way that shows strength and composure rather than anger and impulsiveness. That difference builds trust because people see that you won't lash out or lose control easily. They realize you're someone who thinks before acting, someone who can handle tension without falling apart. That steadiness makes you both respected and harder to provoke. Training yourself to respond instead of react takes practice. It starts with awareness, noticing when your emotions are rising and choosing not to be led by them. You can use tools like breathing, grounding yourself in silence, or reminding yourself that not everything requires your energy. With time, this becomes natural. You begin to recognize that reacting rarely improves a situation, but responding almost always does. You begin to see that your calm presence is more powerful than any loud reaction could ever be. You begin to understand that the one who controls their emotions is the one who truly holds the power. The more you respond instead of react, the more peace you carry with you everywhere. You stop being pulled into arguments that go nowhere. You stop wasting energy on people who thrive on drama, and you stop allowing temporary emotions to create permanent problems. You show others that you cannot be easily rattled, and in doing so, you teach them how to treat you. When you choose responses over reactions, you create a life where your calmness becomes your armor and your clarity becomes your strength. Setting unshakable boundaries is what allows you to live life without constantly feeling drained or disrespected. Boundaries are not about building walls to keep people out. They are about drawing lines that protect your time, energy, and emotional well-being. When you do not set them, people will naturally take as much as you allow, because human nature often pushes limits. But when you learn to define and enforce boundaries, you teach others how to treat you. You no longer feel guilty for saying no, and you no longer sacrifice your peace to please people who wouldn't do the same for you. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear rejection, conflict, or being seen as difficult. But the truth is, people who genuinely respect you will respect your limits, and those who do not respect them are showing you exactly where they stand. Boundaries act as filters, separating those who add value to your life from those who only take from it. And once you realize this, you see that boundaries are not selfish. They are necessary. Without them, resentment builds, relationships suffer, and your energy gets poured into the wrong places. With them, you remain centered, clear, and in control. Enforcing boundaries does not require anger or aggression. It requires clarity and consistency. The more calmly and firmly you state your limits, the more natural it becomes. If you say yes when you want to say no, you're teaching people that your words are flexible and your time is up for negotiation. But when you hold steady, even in the face of pressure, you communicate that your peace has value. Over time, this changes the way people approach you because they realize that pushing your boundaries is wasted effort. That level of steadiness makes you impossible to manipulate. Boundaries apply in every part of life. In relationships, they prevent you from accepting disrespect disguised as love. At work, they keep you from being overloaded with tasks that aren't your responsibility. With friends, they protect you from one-sided dynamics where you give and give but rarely receive. And even with yourself, boundaries help you maintain discipline, ensuring you don't compromise on your goals or values. When you begin to live with boundaries, you notice how much lighter you feel because you are no longer carrying the weight of obligations that do not belong to you. It's also important to remember that setting boundaries is not a one-time act. It's an ongoing practice. People may test them, push against them, or try to make you feel guilty for having them. But each time you stand firm, you strengthen your ability to remain unbothered. You stop being swayed by manipulation or pressure because you know where you stand. You no longer explain yourself excessively because your limits don't require justification. And the more you do this, the more confident you become in living life on your terms instead of being shaped by the demands of others. Living with unshakable boundaries gives you freedom. You don't overextend yourself, you don't allow disrespect to slide, and you don't confuse kindness with weakness. People quickly learn that your energy is not theirs to take, and your peace is not theirs to disrupt. And when someone tries to cross a line, instead of reacting with frustration, you respond with clarity because you already know what you will and will not allow. That certainty creates a quiet strength that keeps you grounded no matter who you're dealing with or what situation you face. Cultivating self-validation is the foundation of being unbothered because once you stop depending on others for approval, you free yourself from the constant ups and downs of external opinions. Most people live in a cycle where they feel good only when others recognize them and feel crushed when that recognition doesn't come. But self-validation breaks that pattern. It means you decide your worth, you decide when you've done well, and you decide what success looks like for you. When this becomes your mindset, the voices around you lose their power to control how you feel about yourself. The danger of seeking validation from others is that it leaves you chasing something you can never fully hold. Today, someone may praise you. Tomorrow, they may criticize you. And if your confidence depends on them, you will always be at their mercy. Self-validation removes that leash. Instead of waiting for someone else to confirm your value, you confirm it yourself. You acknowledge your own effort, you recognize your own progress, and you celebrate your own wins, no matter how small. That inner recognition becomes a shield that makes outside opinions feel lighter, less significant, and less capable of shaking you. Self-validation also changes the way you approach challenges. When you are dependent on others' approval, failure feels devastating because it risks their judgment. But when you validate yourself, failure becomes part of growth, not a threat to your identity. You can take risks, make mistakes, and still hold your head high because you know your value isn't erased by an outcome. This gives you the courage to move forward without fear of what others will think, because you are no longer performing for their applause. You are living for your own standards. This behavior requires practice because most people have been conditioned to seek validation since childhood. It begins with paying attention to your inner dialogue. Instead of only feeling proud when someone compliments you, practice giving yourself credit before anyone else does. When you achieve something, even something small, pause to acknowledge it for yourself. When you face criticism, instead of crumbling, remind yourself of the effort you put in and the progress you've made. Over time, these small acts of internal recognition build a stronger, more confident mindset that no one can easily disrupt. The beauty of self-validation is that it creates stability. When people praise you, you accept it without becoming addicted to it. When people criticize you, you hear it without being destroyed by it. You become steady, balanced, and harder to sway because your core is not dependent on shifting opinions. This steadiness makes you stand out because while others are constantly chasing approval, you are grounded in your own certainty. People notice this, and ironically, it makes them respect you more because confidence that comes from within cannot be faked. Living with self-validation means carrying an unshakable calm wherever you go. You no longer beg for acknowledgement, you no longer feel empty without praise, and you no longer shrink in the face of disapproval. You move with quiet confidence, knowing you have nothing to prove because you've already given yourself the recognition you need. This mindset not only makes you unbothered, it also frees you to live more authentically because your choices are no longer dictated by what will please others, but by what aligns with your values and vision. Practicing the power of silence is one of the most underrated yet effective ways to remain completely unbothered. Silence is not weakness, it is control. It is the decision to withhold your energy when the situation does not deserve it, and to conserve your words for when they will have the most impact. Many people rush to fill every gap in conversation, to defend themselves at every turn, or to win every argument. But silence carries a weight that words cannot, because it creates space, it disrupts the cycle of conflict, and it forces others to sit with their own behavior. When someone tries to provoke you, your silence can be louder than any comeback. Instead of reacting with anger or feeding into their negativity, you give them nothing to hold on to. That nothingness unsettles people who thrive on attention because it denies them the reaction they crave. Over time, you learn that silence is not about ignoring others, but about choosing not to waste energy where it will not bring value. It's about protecting your peace by refusing to let every opinion or attack pull you into unnecessary battles that drain you more than they serve you. Silence also gives you time to process before you act. When you do not respond immediately, you create room for clarity. Emotions settle, perspective sharpens, and you can decide whether speaking even matters. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all, because silence shows that your energy is too valuable to spend on noise. And when you do choose to speak, your words carry more authority because they are deliberate, precise, and not tangled in impulsive reactions. This makes your presence stronger and your communication sharper. There is also power in using silence during conflict. Instead of matching someone's raised voice, you let quietness do the work. Silence forces them to face their own tone, their own words, and their own behavior. It often de-escalates tension faster than arguments do because it denies fuel to the fire. People quickly realize they cannot pull you into chaos, and that realization shifts the balance of power. You stay composed, they become unsettled, and in that moment, you show that control is not about who can shout the loudest, but about who can remain unshaken. Practicing silence does not mean suppressing your voice when it matters. It means being intentional about when you use it. It means choosing your moments wisely so your words create impact instead of noise. Silence teaches patience, and patience allows you to observe instead of rushing to react. By watching more and speaking less, you notice things you would have missed, and you gain an advantage because you are not blinded by impulse. Silence becomes both a shield and a strategy, allowing you to move through situations with clarity and strength. Living with the power of silence makes you naturally unbothered because you are no longer pulled into every argument, every opinion, or every unnecessary debate. You let people talk, you let them assume, you let them project, but you don't allow it to disturb your peace. Your silence speaks for you, telling the world that you don't chase validation, you don't waste energy, and you don't lower yourself to unnecessary conflict. And in the end, silence becomes your loudest form of confidence, showing that true strength is not in proving yourself to everyone, but in knowing you don't need to.